Decentralize all the things. Decentralize all the things.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of What the Fork. This week we're going to talk use cases. Let's get specific. Let's walk through something step by step. First chunk of the show is a chat between me and my old friend Morgan Lesko of Open Police Complaints and my sponsor Maarten Boender of Shpereon. We are going to talk about how to secure the authenticity and anonymity of sensitive data in a large database. In this case, it's an open database for police complaints in the United States, but it could apply to all sorts of sensitive data. On the back end of the show, Maarten touches on a range of other practical uses for blockchain. Bear with us, this might get into a little more detail than most of my other episodes will, but I think it really helps demystify the tech a bit and give us an idea of okay, blockchain does a thing, this is a thing, this is super valuable, cool, let's do it. Also, just please forgive any potato quality at some points. This audio was taken from a web chat from halfway around the world. So, hope you enjoy. Looking forward to your feedback. Let's do it.
Cool. So, hey, this is Damo here. I have a dear friend of mine with me, Morgan Lesko. This is an old friend of mine from college. And he's working on a very interesting project right now called Open Police Complaints. And what I've done is I've also got Maarten Boender here from Shpereon, from my sponsor, who does enterprise-level integrations with Factum. And I think there's something here that would be really cool to explore. So I want to let Morgan explain what his project is, and then maybe Maarten can help us figure out how to use Factum with it.
Cool. Thank you, Damo. And it's nice to virtually meet you, Maarten. And my project I've been working on with an organization called Flex Your Rights we've been trying to build this and building it for 3.5 years now. And it's openpolice.org will be its home. So our primary goal is to be able to collect complaints from people throughout the country and submit them to their local police department according to their department's requirements for complaints, and also have them published on the internet. And according to people's privacy desires, they can either submit it totally anonymously, where we don't ask them for their information, and we pass everything on to the oversight agency to investigate the police complaint, or they can be fully transparent and put both their names and the officers' names on the website publicly. So currently, there's a number of issues that we're trying to address within the realm of police accountability with this project, but one of the many ones is a lack of data. There's at least 18,000 police departments in the country, and there's absolutely zero data that's consistent across all departments that the Department of Justice, Bureau of Statistics, for example, has to work with to make any actionable decisions.
For example, there's no agreed upon number of how many civilians police have killed in any given year.
Right.
Because there's no standard reporting requirements that trickle up to a database that shows that sort of information on a federal level.
Right, and that's been created by a bottom-up database by journalists at this point. So similarly, we're creating a new data set with a new API attached to it of what a police complaint is, and complicated complaints that go for the gold and fill out all the questions we have to offer can fill up to 300 questions about the details of their police complaint. And so basically, since a lot of these, or since a subset of these complaints may actually be very hairy cases, basically, where people are worried about police intimidation and there may be vested interests in altering the data or trying to suppress the publishing of the information on the site, especially for the complaints that are fully transparent. We do have concerns and have been trying to figure out strategies to maximize our certainty that people's stories won't be silenced. So from what little I've learned so far from Damien about Factum, it sounds like it might be able to let us get a stamp of a published complaint and therefore have a new ledger of proof that story was published in its exact form at the date that it was published. So, I'm overwhelmed with all of our, the build out, and we're trying to launch in the coming months. But I'm also excited to start planning these next level upgrades as we scale to enterprise level, because we do want to be the national clearinghouse for police complaints.
Okay, clear. Yes. Yeah, it sounds very interesting type of project. And you mentioned actually two main problems, or a couple of main problems with today's world. In today's world, what you see is that you mentioned that every police department basically has their own system with their own database, with their own little kingdom of all the information in there. And so that's one problem that you have in today's world. The second is that if they want to share that information, is that there's a lot of basically consolidation of data. First of all, you have to map it to some kind of common data format, and then you have to consolidate the different databases to come up with one source, with one basically database that is common for everybody. So that's typically a problem that you see with enterprises, with government agencies all over the world. You see that people are spending a lot of time and a lot of work in consolidating these databases. And this is basically why we have all these accountants and all of these processes and procedures and things around, because people do not agree on what is the truth, in which case my database is correct or their database is correct. How do you settle this? That's where you go to a central authority that decides, okay, this is the truth. So this is where blockchain brings in one big benefit, because what would be the solution is basically have all the police stations write to one common database which contains all information. So they don't keep the information, but everybody has one central database. Now, that, of course, would be ideal. But the big problem with that is, of course, that is basically one honeypot for every hacker in the world to go after and to try to break into that and to play around to get information out of it, which can be, as you can say, as you said, be very confidential and very sensitive. And it's easily to be tampered with. Either our foreign friends from overseas would love to play around with that and suddenly insert 1,000 more records of police brutality or whatever to put everybody into a bad light. So how can you protect this database against tampering? So there is where blockchain brings in a lot of value, because with blockchain, you can guarantee that the data that you've registered at a certain moment of time has not been tampered with since that moment in time. So with that, it becomes, not the truth, but it becomes for sure something that has not been tampered with. Whether or not it's the truth, you don't know. You only know, you only know that someone, which has been identified through mathematical private-public key, has written that information into that database at that certain moment in time. So you can hold them accountable. You put the data in there. And so if at the later stage it turns out not to be true, they can be held accountable that at least they wrote it into there. So that is one benefit of blockchain, a big benefit that could be used in your use case. So that you can guarantee, okay, this is the data that was received at a certain date and time, and it was not been tampered with, and it was entered by a certain person into that or department into the database.
Very cool. Yes,
and that can be done cheaply.
That can do very cheaply, because you can basically take whatever common database that you have, whether it's an open source, MySQL, or whatever type of database that you want to use. You can store everything. You just need to also record that information, anchor it into a blockchain to prove at a later stage that this data is authentic.
So that's very cool.
Yeah, what would that integration look like on just a basic software level?
The basic software level, it's pretty simple. You basically use hashing algorithms, which are public algorithms, to hash any data that you have in the database as soon as something is written into the database, or before it's written into the database, actually. You would hash that data and put the hash on the blockchain. And that is pretty straightforward. It's like like another calculation and writing it into a database. So that's there's common APIs for that. There's easy to do with a number of blockchain protocols, where the benefit of Factum is that it's cheap at a fixed price.
I see.
Yeah, so it's
very cool.
Yeah, it's cheap and it's a fixed price. It will cost the same this year as it will cost next year as the year after that. So that's pretty cool. The second thing you wrote or you thought about is what about privacy data? I want to share my data with them, but I don't want to tell them who I am. I don't want to tell them what their office name was. I'm afraid if that information becomes public, that people will come after me. They will harass me. They maybe, I'm afraid. I just want to share that information, but not necessarily who I am. So what comes to mind there is the self-sovereign identities, basically enabling you to have your own identity, which is 100% cryptographically secure, and you have your own data. You own your own data, and you decide what to share with whom. So the way that basically works is that you have like a claim. You claim that you are who you say that you are, that you live on a certain address, that you have a certain degree from university, or whatever claim that you have, and you have that verified by trusted parties. So, for instance, the fact that you were born at a certain date at a certain time, you can go to your local government office and have them verify, or your bank, or another trusted party that confirms that claim. For a degree, that can be a university, and for whatever education you've had after that, like you're in medical, you go to medical school, you get your degree, but then the hospital where you do your advanced work confirms that you've did that, and so you have multiple claims, and you have them verified by trusted parties, multiple trusted parties. And that's done in such a way that, again, we use blockchain technologies to have a cryptographical proof that you were the person who made that claim, and the other trusted party was the one who confirmed this claim. Now you can share whatever you want to share. You decide as a user what you want to share, with whom you want to share it. And they can see, without seeing the details, that this is the truth because it was verified by a trusted party. So, for instance, if you want to share your for instance, you want to go buy something, you want to buy some alcoholic beverages, you go to the shop, you have to show them that you're 21 or older. Nowadays, you have to show your ID, and they can see everything. They can see your exact date of birth. They can see your social security number. They can see a lot more information.
Yeah, your home address.
Everything. Yeah. So, and they don't have to see that. They just have to know I'm over 21.
Yeah.
So you can share with them a derivative claim, which basically says I'm over 21. The city of Los Angeles or whatever has confirmed this. And that is enough for the shop to sell you that alcoholic beverage, and so you don't have to show them everything, and you decide if they need something, you decide what they need. So this could also be used in your police complaints database.
Very cool. Thanks for explaining that.
Factum is working on identities now, right? It's a pretty critical part of the protocol development process. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, they already have, from the beginning, they designed digital identities into their system. So the digital identities they already have. You can create digital identities today. What they don't have yet is the self-sovereign identities.
Meaning that there's no way for existing governing bodies and certifying bodies to sort of add a stamp to the claim.
Not at the moment. That's where we're working on. That's where Shpereon is working on, what our Blockchain Innovation Foundation is working on, and a number of other A&Os. There are other systems out there. Sovereign is one of the ones that comes to mind, which is pretty far along with that. And the nice thing about it is that it's all being based on standards nowadays, emerging standards.
Yeah.
True, but that means that whatever we build for Factum will also be supported by the other self-sovereign identities.
Right. This seems to be one of the most important aspects of blockchain as a technology and social movement, is that it's modular, interoperable, emergent, and voluntary.
Yeah, exactly.
And all those pieces make for a very different fabric for civilization. We can actually try things separately and converge on standards to interoperate with one another when we figure out what works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so these standards are being developed and being used. So for Factum, we look at somewhere mid Q1 to bring out the first solutions based on that. We expect the specifications for Factum to be ready by the end of this year, so early January probably, to be able to send out the specifications and then build on top of that. So Q1 is what we aim at to bring that to Factum.
Awesome. You guys are working with some city governments in the Netherlands, right? To do
Correct.
The distribution of social services?
Not so much in that. There is government programs, of course, by law, where people are in need, will have or basically unemployed, or have their rights under the social security system to get benefits. But on top of that, almost every local municipality has some additional schemes that they're running. So, for instance, there's one local government which has twice a year a clothing market where people are under a certain level of income can come and for the winter buy a thick coat for the winter, or in the summer buy some summer clothes or things like that. Or there are schemes where they can visit theater, the local theaters, for free, or they can go and bring their kids to some sports club where they pay for the fees for the sports club. So there's different kinds of municipalities have different kind of schemes, and what they have in common is that they have they're all very heavy loads of administration, both for the municipality as well as for the whoever the sports club or the theater company or the shopkeeper which sells the clothes. They all have to keep separate administrations, and they use either vouchers or tokens or any kind of scheme to basically are able to provide these solutions. So what we do for them is that we use tokenization to have the local municipality issue any number of tokens and have those tokens issued to the citizen, the person who needs to buy the winter coat or visit the theater or go to the swimming pool. And once they are at that supplier for that service or those goods, basically they provide them with an app where they show them that they're entitled, that they hold some tokens, and there's an exchange of the tokens through the app that the supplier has. So the tokens go from the municipality to the citizen, from the citizen to the shopkeeper, and they're all registered on blockchain. And because they're on blockchain, there's then an automatic settlement between the supplier and the municipality. So the supplier automatically gets its money. The tokens are exchanged for fiat and are basically passed to through self-billing to between the local municipality and the supplier.
So in theory, that gets rid of a ton of administrative overhead and paperwork and inefficiency and mistakes.
Absolutely.
Fraud, right. And I don't know if either of you guys have ever had to sit in a social services office and wait to apply for social services, but I have, and it was a really dehumanizing experience.
Absolutely.
It's like the DMV, but because you're desperate.
Yeah.
And you're treated as sort of less than human in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It was a very bizarre situation too. I was living in Baltimore when I had to get some food stamps, and I go into the office, and all the security guards are young Black women from the area, and all the social security or all the social services people were sort of like middle-aged, also members of the community. It was like they were administrating their own benefits program, but in this horribly inefficient, procedurally dehumanizing way. And it was just sad. It was just so sad. And it's amazing that entire process that sucks so bad with the snail mail and the interviews and the process that no one's even paying attention to anymore. It seems like could be replaced with a smartphone app and the ability to just send the tokens out. And no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Of course, these people get harassed. They have to take a lot of crap as well. These people who work at these offices as well.
I can't imagine it's an easy task because it's a system almost designed not to work. It's a behemoth.
No, but that's true. But we see the same thing here. There's basically the same schemes for food stamps and the clothing. Like they organize a market where they can go twice a year to buy some clothes. And if you can imagine, they're never the most modern ones. They're never the most trendy ones. And they have to go to the poor man's market to either get the food or get their clothes. And there are certainly, I think they did some investigation. About 25% of the people who are entitled to these programs don't go there because you'll humiliated to go and there. And so their people, their kids are basically not getting enough food and not getting enough clothes just because they don't want to be seen going to such a place to pick up handouts.
Right.
And with this scheme, they can go to any shopkeeper and just get a discount. And the local municipality, the government knows that it will be spent on bringing the kids to school or bringing the kids to a sports club or getting those clothes, and not that they hand out money that goes to other things like booze or whatever.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. So it works great for everybody. The citizen feels definitely who use this. The people who use this feel definitely better. And get the things that they're entitled to. The shopkeeper doesn't have to do a lot of bookkeeping and separate systems and can offer the same service to everybody. And the government has a lot less work.
Yeah, we like the government having less work. That's probably a good thing. It means we're doing something right?
Yeah, absolutely. You see these kind of triangles. You see it a lot. We're talking to basically a importer for BMW, who has right now a promotion that they say, okay, you can go to your local dealer and get you call a winter check for half the price. So if you have a BMW, you can go to the dealer and say, hey, I want to have this checkup at half price. And the dealer says, fine, here you go. We give that to you. But then they go to the importer and say, hey, we just gave out half a price a winter check. Can you compensate us for this? And so they have the same kind of triangle where they have a lot of extra information that they need to exchange and claim those benefits and get paid for giving these half price winter checks.
Oh, right. It's kind of like managing the paper trail for coupon redemptions.
Exactly. Those kind of things.
Digital too and super streamlined.
Yeah.
And it can be nothing more than scanning your debit card, which is also your driver's license, which is also your loyalty points.
Exactly.
It's just one scan because it's your personal data wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big topic for a good friend of mine, Kyle Kemper. He just wrote a book called The Data Wallet, or The Digital Wallet.
Yeah. That's exactly the same thing that we described before with the basically the self-sovereign identities. Those are data wallets where you keep your data and you decide what to share with whom without giving out more information that you absolutely need to.
Do you have any sense of how soon some of us are going to be able to play with that sort of thing meaningfully? Self-sovereign identity?
Like I said, there's already solutions out there. I can definitely point you to some companies who are doing it now based on software and things like that.
Yeah.
And like this citizen app that I just described, we have a minimal viable product out there, which you can install and run on in a beta type of environment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing that could potentially be integrated into a project like Open Police Complaints? Like to set up somebody's identity for them as
we have kind of a different use case because either the person wants to be totally anonymous and their identity should not be known by anybody, or if they're not going to be publicly identified, but they're going to need to be investigated. They're going to be called in for interviews and witness testimony and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be identified in kind of an old-fashioned way.
Well, you can say that, but that's not necessarily true. If you use self-sovereign identities, what you could do is they could go and give their statement totally to a third person, like a notary or whoever, but another trusted party. And that trusted party will basically digitally sign their testimony. That it's truthful, that it was given to them by that they identified the person and they knew who did that, but unknown to the police. But cryptographically proven that this person gave that statement in a certain moment. So it's like going in front of a judge in a closed chamber.
It almost gives a software layer to traditional authenticity outlets to the point where you can program the workflow between them. Create totally different interactions. Like you, Morgan, building this database to begin with is sort of trying to build an additional data layer that hooks into the existing authority structure. And this is, the blockchain is just trying to take it extra steps to both preserve and authenticate the data and preserve and protect the person giving the data.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the day when, police agencies and their oversight agencies will accept testimonies, stamped on the blockchain and authenticated that way. We're trying to get them to accept complaints via email first. So it's a rough. I think we'll see progress in other sectors of public space before police departments, but I totally thank you for explaining where these technologies can be used there as well.
Yeah, and I think it will go faster than you think, because what would be the difference when someone would go into a closed chamber in front of a judge or a grand jury and give a statement and have it basically authenticated by those people? And why wouldn't you do that and log it on blockchain? So now you have proof that a judge and a grand jury basically heard this testimony, and that is the fact. They don't have to share all the details of the testimony with the public. That can be kept secure, basically stored in a digital locker, but the fact that this testimony was given and was accepted by a grand jury is a fact that you can publish on blockchain without basically giving out the person's identity. So it's more secure than any protective witness program that I can think of. Actually, we went out to Singapore end of last month. We were at the Interpol headquarters there. Their Interpol headquarters there are the tech lead for Interpol. And we did a bunch of companies that we were with did pitches, and actually we won the pitch for basically providing proof using this system, using Factum and the same system there for digital chain of custody for digital evidence. If you have different digital evidence, which could be like voice recorders or film or movies or whatever type of digital content you have, you can add an ID to it, a digital identity to that digital file, and then you can log every step where it goes and where it went and who touched it and who saw it and who listened to it and everything. So you can prove after 6 months or a year, when the case comes into trial, that this was an authentic digital file and it has not been tampered with, and you can show exactly where it's been and who has listened to it and who has seen it and these kind of things.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the impetus for open police complaints is to add additional pressure and leverage on police departments to actually deal appropriately with the complaints, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is the surfacing of this data, so more people are aware of it, so more people are upset about it, so it's harder for them to hide because public outrage can build very quickly once a case comes out.
Right, and most of these, I mean, a lot of nonprofit organizations, I mean, some of them work 10 years to try to release privately withheld police records that the police unions shield from public scrutiny. We're trying to sidestep that by just creating our own data set.
But there's an upside for police, I think, as well to cooperate, because
it should be, yes. Yeah.
Well, how often have you heard about that they have this desk cam where they record whatever is happening, or the phone recording?
Yeah, body cam
engagement. Yeah, body cams, and there's so much distrust to the police that everybody assumes that has been tampered with.
Yeah, yeah.
And the body cams are an ideal thing to put a Factum stamper right in.
Totally.
For them, it's also, they can prove that no, we never tampered this.
That's right.
Yeah, so that could be your entrance into the police departments as well, because there's a benefit for them as well.
Yeah. This is kind of what Paul was saying in my interview with him last week. Was it's hard once you're offered a cost-effective way to have integrity as a public servant. It's hard to argue, no, we shouldn't do that. No, we just shouldn't do that.
No.
What would you be trying to hide? Right.
Well, it takes just a couple of enlightened police commissioners to give you the go ahead.
Right. And that seems to be kind of your style too, is just finding partners for integrations and doing it piece by piece to prove the concept, but with real players, cities in the Netherlands, enterprise level, Fortune 1000 companies, etc. And it's just finding the ones that have the use case and are open-minded enough, and you're confident that you have an actual production-ready solution, and then proving all those things true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And start simple, and build on that.
Yep.
Cool.
Start little steps and then build on that.
So if Morgan was ready to poke around in the Factum like API offerings and code base, or anyone like Morgan working on something that might like to integrate this kind of feature, where would they go?
I think that they would first go to the Factum protocol website.
The factumprotocol.org?
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
And read some of the information which is shared on there, and then feel free to contact some of the companies mentioned on that, including our company, to just put the business case up like we did today, and explore some possibilities and some impossibilities, and come up with some plan on starting simple and building on that.
Yeah, thank
cool.
you. Yeah, and I find the Factum Discord is very active with the authority node operators and others that are developing on the protocol, and everybody's pretty awesome. Anybody that's dropped in and had honest questions about whether it's development or questions about the protocol itself or the ecosystem has been met with good information from people who actually want to help.
Yeah.
That's been really cool.
True. I've seen a lot of communities, but I really like this community. It's really decentralized. People are open and willing to help and discuss.
Actually, Morgan, when you built the open police complaints thing, you actually created like a database architecture.
So I started just designing the database of questions we wanted to ask a victim of police misconduct. And so I built a little database design software, basically, which became the start of my software that's slowly crawled into or creeped into a full, nearly complete content management system. So as it goes.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me because as a decision tree of questions, each of which captures a data point, it might have an interesting architecture and context to Factum in most of its use cases of stamping and authenticating the data that comes in, making sure that sort of like the answers down the decision tree of the database are what was said they were.
Right. I am storing every node on the tree of questions basically individually, and that is something that if we wanted to like enable that, I picture these as system level settings on my software,
right? So
that certain installations of this database designer could install Factum verification essentially. So it could go down to the node level instead of just like the finished complaint in this case. It could be question by question if you want to go that
So in the context of open police complaints, it could hash every single answer to every single field of data. So not only did the whole thing not change, if anything changed, you could find out what, down to the detail. And that would be for any sort of data-heavy website or product or service, anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so you can do the benefit of doing it on the field level is, of course, that you can confirm every field is being authentic.
Right.
But there's of course, Factum is cheap, but it still would incur costs depending on the number of questions, depending on the number of cases that you have. It could become more expensive.
Right.
What you could also do is if the finished questionnaire. Just hash all of the data.
That's definitely the version I'm picturing for almost certain at this point in my
step
mind.
One,
yeah.
But it seems like even if something had 300 different questions, that would only be 300 hashes, which would be 30 cents.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it depends, but you can get to a pretty high threshold of granularity and still have a major cost benefit.
Yeah.
Which I find so interesting. Yeah.
Well, very cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, happy to share some more information. If you have more questions, just contact me and we'll talk some more.
Awesome.
That's awesome, Maarten.
I'll be in touch.
Yeah, and I'd like to have more conversations like this in the future too. I think this is super valuable, even just for a general audience, for people to hear specific use cases and how you would put something like this into it to add value, and to do so pretty easily, it seems.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about how we got into blockchain in the first place, how we came into contact with it. Of course, we're always interested in new technology, so we had blockchain on our radar a couple of years ago, and actually we were working in a use case right there with a customer, which is a environmental planning agency. So if there's a large building project, people need to apply for a permit, and that agency is a government agency which will do an investigation of the environmental impact. And if that is all good, then people are issued a permit to start building a factory or a building or an extension to a city or whatever. And if it's not good, then they're denied, of course. So what they have is that they had a workflow system in place, a case management system built on Office 365 SharePoint. And when the case was done and the decision was made, good or bad, then all the files that they had, they asked us to convert them to PDF for archiving and put them into a record management system. And they said, and can you then digitally sign these documents, these PDFs, so that at a later stage, if there's questions, we can prove that these documents were authentic. And we said, maybe blockchain is a good solution for that, because if you convert everything to PDF, which is a standard format, but you lose a lot of information on the conversion. If you have building information files or Excel sheets or things like that, you lose the formulas. If you have AutoCAD drawings, you lose information which is in there when you convert into PDF, and you will have a problem in recreating that information from a PDF. So why don't we use blockchain to create a digital hash of each of those original documents? and then create a hash of the converted PDF and create a hash of both of these files together. So then we can prove that the original file has not been tampered with when we store it. That the PDF belongs to that because the two of them have been hashed together. So you can prove that they are linked together and are actually one and belonging to each other. Mm-hmm. So at a later stage, when there's a discussion about the validity of the file, you can always prove that the file is authentic and has not been tampered with. Mm-hmm. And in fact, take the whole dossier, all the 20 files that you've collected over the work life cycle of the work case, hash them together so you can prove nothing is missing. We left nothing out. This is the complete file. There's no file missing. We didn't leave anything out. This is all of it. So that's something that they like, because they do get into situations where the people who are, the permit is denied. They go into arbitration, and they even go into court to basically prove that they were entitled to this permit, and because often there's large amounts of money involved in these projects. Mm-hmm. So then we said, okay, once we did that at the beginning of the project, at the beginning of the project, we started at the end of the process. And then we said, why don't we start at the beginning? As soon as a case is submitted, someone wants to request a permit, they upload all kinds of information, all kinds of files, all kinds of data. Let's hash that. So you can always prove at a later stage that this is what we received. This is what we received on the submission. And no, we didn't tamper with it. It's exactly the same date as it was what you submitted on this and this date in that time.
And this is currently like a giant rat's nest of digital and paper documents strewn across buildings and agencies. And it's just a giant mess.
Exactly. So there's all kinds of data coming in from all kinds of sources, which are basically building up this first case where people will require a permit for doing a big project.
And this is true of most data-heavy processes with regulatory bodies, governments, corporations, financial institutions. Pretty much everything we do has this sort of a rat's nest of documentation behind it.
And different versions.
Right.
So there's a document sent in, and then someone changes something, it becomes a new version, and it uploads it, and everybody thinks they're looking at the same document, but in fact it's a different version.
Right.
So this is where blockchain really, really helps to prove that this is the exact version of the document that we were submitting on this and this date and this time.
Yeah, version history and chain of custody as well.
Exactly. Because what happens...
Who changed?
Because what happens in these situations is that the people are basically looking at the submission and saying, oh, we're missing some information, or this is not up to date, or they send out a request for additional information, and then the applicant has like 4 weeks to provide that information. And if they don't do it on time, the permit is rejected. Now, often there starts a discussion. No, we submitted it on time. We sent you the information by email on this and this date. But there's no proven record that this actually happened and that the deadline was kept. So basically what we do is we take a number of these important decision moments in the workflow in the case management system, and also hash that information with that action on blockchain. So that creates also a transparent outside view to the data. They don't have to get these people, those stakeholders, access to their systems, but they can point them to the blockchain, which is a public blockchain, Factum, outside of the system, where they can verify the progress of the application and can verify that their data actually has been processed to a next step. And as soon as they start sharing information with third parties, that information can be verified as being truthful and coming from this environmental planning agency. So we have a couple of steps in the workflow, and now they have basically an independent audit trail, providing transparency to all stakeholders that the process was done according to the procedural rules that are in place, and provides everybody with the same body of information.
Wow. Wow, and this can be applied to any, like you were saying, like anything. Applying for loans, applying for like a marriage permit, or applying for a university, or an example in the real world now, Domino's Pizza. When you order a pizza from Domino's now, they'll like text message you, or you can look on their website and you can see exactly where in the order process your food is. Did the pizza just go in the oven, or did it just come out of the oven? Did a driver just take it out the door and start coming to your house?
And it's like if you don't receive it within 45 minutes or so, it's free.
Yeah.
So now you can prove this was the time that I sent my app to order it, and here's the deliverable.
So taking out the subjectivity in a lot of these data heavy, supposedly very like rules based systems, but there's so many ways to get around it, or so many ways for human error or malaise. I mean, God, how much time and money and heartache can making these processes more efficient and trustworthy save?
Yeah, and pizza is the least of our problems. Free pizza is the least of our problems.
Yeah.
No, it's true. If you look at all the procedures nowadays that are in place by governments, but also by big companies or even small companies, that you feel like you're fighting against a big dragon, and you always end up with the short stick. And by having these type of things registering on blockchain, you have the absolute proof, and there is no more discussion whether or not this was done on a certain moment, and the other party didn't kept their side of the bargain on responding on time or providing adequate information on time and things like that. So that's going to be a big impact for many companies too. And let's see, basically as a company, as an enterprise, what we tell them is, hey, this is an opportunity as well. You can show to the outside world independently, without giving out any detailed information, that you actually have the best customer service around, because you always deliver your pizzas on time. So take it not as a threat, but take it as an opportunity to prove to the world that you are the best company and your KPIs on what you do.
It's amazing how much of the solution for so many of our problems revolve around better data capture and having that data be in the hands of the people who are supposed to own it, sharing it down to the factoid, as it were, with whoever they feel appropriate when they feel appropriate.
Exactly.
Which is the opposite of the way it works now. Like Facebook, Google, Amazon, Netflix, etc. These guys hold all of our data and sell it to the highest bidder. And it makes this really perverse interaction between product and service providers as marketers and as the real customers of these platforms we're using.
No, so I absolutely agree. So we believe that this is it will change a lot of things, but definitely gives a lot of opportunities for companies as well. Like from the Netherlands, we fly, of course, a lot with KLM, and KLM has always said that they're the most reliable airline in the world. But that's what they say.
Right.
How do they prove this? And they can show their internal data, and they can show us the internal data, and that's true. If you look at their internal data, sure, they're the most reliable airline. Sometimes they're not, but most of the time they are. But what if they just register this on blockchain, and they basically show to the world that, just look on the statistics on Factum, and you will see that we in fact are using the flight tracking software that is available on the web everywhere now, that we have the most flights leaving on time, arriving on time.
This is actually one of the things that I love so much about Factum compared to most other blockchain protocols, is most of them are magic internet money, or a lot of them are, or they're sort of general process computing like Ethereum, which is a powerful idea. But there's actually sort of a values-based message behind Factum of this is the internet's data integrity layer. If you want to be damn sure people can trust you, if you really want to go out of your way you stand to save a lot of time and money by doing so. Also, use Factum. Prove that what you say is true.
Absolutely.
That's incredibly valuable and way less abstract, I think, to people than the idea of money created out of thin air by tokenizing.
True.
Like, wow, I can actually trust what you're saying all of a sudden? That's a new sensation. What do we do with this? I think it changes the nature of a lot of our political discourse too, because right now we can't even agree on the facts. And we can have perfectly reasonable disagreements even when we do agree on the facts. But how do we get anywhere if we can't even agree on that? Yeah. Anyway, this is super fascinating. I look forward to hearing about some of the other use cases you guys are exploring, because they all really flesh out why blockchain, why does this matter at all. I think they do a really good job of it.
Yeah, we have a couple of more, so happy to talk in the next episodes about some of the other use cases that we do.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Maarten.
You're welcome.
Yeah, take care.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, that about does it for another episode of What the Fork. I want to thank everybody for listening. New episodes air every other Wednesday, so we'll see you again in a couple of weeks for the next plain English conversation about cutting-edge ideas. To learn more about the podcast and keep the conversation going, visit me at www.whatthefork.show or troll me on Twitter at TechDrugsRock'n'Roll. Seriously, I'd love to know what you guys are thinking. I want to give a shout out to Shpereon, who has graciously sponsored the production of this series. Check them out at Shpereon.com. That's Shpereon.com. This show is sponsored and user-supported, so if you like what you hear, you can help keep it going with a contribution at www.patreon.com/whatthefork. Or you can reach out at whattheforkshow@protonmail.com if you'd like to learn about becoming a sponsor. Thanks again, and until next time, fork this!